Alright, hello and welcome to the fourth episode of my Retro City Rampage Clone in Unity tutorial. Today we're doing a bit more on bullets and weapons, so I'll just show you. Now we can kill them and you see there's a little health bit being displayed, and we can just cycle through that, and you can see once they've died they don't appear in the they don't get locked onto anymore. So yeah, and pretty much it. Alright, I will now show you how to do that. But first, we're going to fix that bug that was there from last time with the lock on. Basically, what would happen is once you're locked on to I think it was either the lowest indexed object that you could log on to and the highest one. If you're locked onto them and you pressed either E or Q, it would just hang on them once, and then when you pressed it again, since it had run through this code and just reset, then it would cycle through it again. But to fix that bug, we just copied this code and put it in here. Alright, and yeah, that's pretty much it for the bug fix. And the other thing we added to the NPC controller was is there something to lock onto? Sorry. Which basically just returns a boolean and is to check whether there is something to lock onto or not within the camera view. So if there's no NPCs at all, it just returns false. And if it finds an NPC which is in the camera view, which is you can find out with is visible on a sprite renderer, or I think it works with normal renderers as well if you're doing 3D stuff, then it'll return true. So you can lock onto it and it'll return true. Else, if it goes through all the NPCs and doesn't find anything, it'll just return false, with retval being set to false here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And alright, so the next script we added is, and I'll show you where this is used, because it's mainly used in the player weapon controller script, but I'll show you where in that in a minute. Now, what we've added for the NPCs is we've added basically just a collider to them, and the tag NPC and the script NPC health, and bullets and the player have a rigid body 2D attached to them so that the enemies can detect collision. So I'll show you in prefab. We've got a box collider, the bullet script, and a rigid body. We just set the gravity and whatnot to 0 because we're using transform.translate. We don't really need them because it's only a simple game. We don't need physics that much. So yeah, this basically has a collision enter 2D. So when a collision is started by either the player, which is checks by checking if the object has the person movement script, and if the person's jumping, straight coming back, then it will take one bit of health away from them and cause die. Now the reason it calls die every time is just to check, like, if it's more efficient than just calling it every frame of update. So we just call it when it's had a collision. And once it has less than or equal to 0 health and dead is false, so it's not been called before, then it'll rotate the NPC 90 degrees to make it look like it's fallen down dead. And it'll basically go through checking components. So if it's got a box collider 2D, it'll set it to false. If it's got an NPC health script, it's going to set it to false. That should probably be below, actually. It'll set sprite renderer color to white. So if you've just shot what you were locked onto, it won't have the red marker appearing over it, and it sets the dead to true, which is kind of pointless considering we're destroying the script after, but oh well. What else? We've also got a condition for checking for bullet if the bullet's hit. So if it's not the person that's jumped on it, then it'll see if it's the bullet. If it has the bullet script component on it, the object that's collided with it, and if it does, it'll take a health away. It'll then destroy the bullet, and then it'll call the die method again. And that's pretty much it. Fairly simple. And we've also got a little GUI thing. It's going to be improved with nicer looking textures towards whenever I get around to doing fancy GUI. But for now, it's just a box just to demonstrate how it works. So basically what it does is it takes the position of the NPC and uses this function world to screen point that's on the camera.main, which is the only camera we have, the main camera here. And it basically converts it to screen coordinates. So if you're playing full screen on my monitor, it being 1920 by 1080, and basically turns the in-game coordinates on the screen to coordinates, so we can write it as a write GUI at the position of the NPC. But it does this by taking the position away from the screen height, so it knows where to draw it, and then we just draw a GUI.box, so create a new rect for its position. But we take away, but as well as doing this to work out where it should be on the screen, we take away a little bit more. So you can see we're taking away from the X coordinate of the NPC, taking away a 30th of the screen width to make it more centered on the NPC. And we're taking away from the Y coordinate a tenth of the screen's height. And the reason we're having it as like a fraction of the screen's width is because it's not going to be played on all one monitor size. So if you're doing it by screen.width, it'll be vaguely similar, I guess, throughout all the screens. Because I know if you just press play, and if I switch through the different aspect ratios, you see how it moves a tiny bit, but even through all the movements, it will, like, it appears near where you want it to be, so you know what health bars for what NPC and whatnot. Yeah, and this may get changed up, like to say check if it's the currently locked on one NPC, then it will. Sorry, I was doing so good for not stumbling with this. Basically, we could add a condition to say if this game object is the locked on one in the player weapon controller, then it'll display the GUI.box, else it won't, just for simplicity's sake or whatnot. Yeah, that's pretty much that script done. Oh, the die method, sorry. So yeah, it sets the tag to dead person, so we don't have it in the NPC array anymore, so it can't be locked onto. And yeah, now the main thing we've done with the player weapon controller is just that we've added some conditions to stop crashes happen, which... Alright, so these crashes weren't in the last build. These have just happened because we've added dying, so things getting removed from the NPC controller array, which was bad. So one of these is by... So here, so we've added the checking if there's something to lock onto, and you press left shift, then it'll allow you to run the lock on code. And then we've also got another one, so if there's nothing to lock onto, or lock on's equal to false, then it'll just call this to make sure that the lock on get if it's not null, so if there is something that's been locked onto, then it will just change the colour to white to indicate that you're not locked onto it, and then change the lock on to false, which, yeah, it's mainly just for if it's been met by this condition, not this condition, but it works the same anyway. We've also had to add it to add the check-in if there's something to lock onto to the input when the E and Q keys, which you use to cycle through the potential lock-on targets, just to make sure that you weren't trying to activate them when there wasn't anything to lock onto. And I think that's, yeah, I think that's about it. So I'll just go through the code, so if you wanted to write this down. So I've got the additional condition for the lock-on monitor. We've got this bit, the else if added to the lock-on control. We've got this bit. And that's about it for this script. Now we've got the NPC health. All this is new, so just copy that down. We've got the NPCs. NPC controller, which is basically we just added this below the if statement in the for loop, sorry, and we've added the function is there someone to lock onto, basically just returning is there something visible, an NPC visible in the camera view. Yeah, so one we've also got not rigid body, so we've got box colliders on the health script on the NPCs, got rigid bodies on the player and the bullet, just for collision detection, and I'll just show you the jumping actually. Oop, oop, oop. There we go. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Cheers for watching, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Go download Loud or Quiet, which might be updated this week depending on how much I get through building this level that I'm working on for it. You can buy my Hotline Miami clone starter pack thing on itch.io, the link will be in the description. It's only £1 and a little bit of change because of tax in the EU, so it'd be even cheaper if you're in America. It'd be $1.50 or something. So yeah, thank you for watching, bye!